Okay guys, welcome to another episode of On Point EDC. I have a really cool knife for you guys today. It's the Benchmade Bugout, which has been hugely popular as of late, pretty much since its release. Highly anticipated, very lightweight knife, super thin. It's been kind of hailed as just like the best new knife for a lot of different reviewers, and then some people after long-term use had some issues with the scales. Some people after short-term use found issues with the scales. They just didn't feel robust enough, although of course it fit the lightweight mantra of the style as far as the use case and everything. Something you could throw in a bug out bag, something that you could take on a hike with you, whatnot, and it's not going to add any weight. What ended up happening is it spurred so many aftermarket companies to come out with scale options, and initially they were quite expensive, so you're basically kind of doubling down, but now it's to the point to where there's just so much value that's out there, and I was able to find these really awesome scales from the brand Aimfront. Now they're super small. I mean, we just basically found them on Instagram, but the design is gorgeous, the milling out, the lightness, the fit and finish, everything is just absolutely fantastic. And it finally, these scales for me made it worth it to finally buy the knife. Once I saw these, and this probably isn't going to be my last bug out mod because they're just so great. So not only am I going to be talking about the scales today, I'm actually going to be kind of talking about the place of the Benchmade Bugout and kind of where it stacks up in between, you know, of course the classics like the Osborne, the 940, and then of course I think the Mini Grip, which I think it's really primed right in between those two in a lot of ways and within size, and then also a price range as well. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Before I pick this up, really quickly, Wristwatch Check. Of course, my channel, if you're subscribed, mostly does watch reviews. I'm wearing the Boulder Expedition, and this is the Everest with the blue dial, and then I actually do have an aftermarket strap on it. It's a Barton Bands silicone strap, really nice. And you know, this is more of an EDC oriented watch, and I think it fits well with this particular knife. Now, the Bugout essentially is quite thin, super light, and man, the only problem was essentially the factory scales. You could basically pinch them and you get a whole lot of flex, which not everybody is really crazy about, especially when you're, I mean, generally a Benchmade knife is going to be a little bit more expensive than what you're going to find. There's guys who are fine spending 40 bucks on knives, but if you're going to spend about $120, you know, there was definitely more solid feeling options because they had more weight, and a lot of that has to do with full liners like you would find in like a Mini Grip, or let's say something like a 940 Osborne, which you could get with aluminum scales. Now these scales are actually milled aluminum, and as you can see here, they do have a ton of milling inside the scale, which help keep the weight down. And I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description so you guys can actually follow and take a look at the milling on these off from kind of a better angle, of course, just so you can get an idea. These things are super nice. I'll actually bring a scale onto the screen here in a bit, but right now I'm sure some of you are wondering what's the blade centering like, and as you can see, it is absolutely just dead on. Look at that. So super nice. And then of course, even with the centering like that, drop shut, I don't have to over tighten it or anything. As far as, you know, any blade play, absolutely zero. So it's tight enough to where there's no blade play, but still has enough space on it where it's going to be able to drop shut and also be super dialed in and lined up and centered. So really great. And look at how thin this profile is. Beautiful chamfers, as you can see, very round, and then you're going to have a nice little divot here. And one of the reasons why they can't go too deep with this, basically this thumb space for flipping to make it easier, is because actually this is where the liners go, and the liners only pretty much go to this first screw So those spaces, there's only so much you can pocket out underneath and on top, because there's just has to generally be less material there. But as you can see, it does have a noticeable swoop there, and then you do have these really nice patterns here for grip, which I really enjoy. One, the aesthetic of, and then also the functionality standpoint, really great. I decided to keep the aluminum hardware from the factory, all the hardware here, the screws, pivot, and everything like that. I will probably be doing some more advanced mods for another another bug out, but for this one I really wanted to keep it very simple, which was the formula of that it's cheap, it's affordable, and these scales only cost 60 bucks, guys, which is insane. So essentially for the price of some, and even under some aftermarket G10 options, and well under carbon fiber and titanium options, you're actually able to get a really beautiful milled and beautifully finished scales here, which are really nice and super lightweight. Oh man, loving it. And then still, as far as the grip goes, really nice. Of course you do get the shorty deep carry pocket clip there from the factory, so that's still usable. But as far as the grips on here, very nice. You get a nice amount of purchase there because of these flats. You can really lock your hand in, dial it in. For different types of cuts, you can go more EDC, you can kind of choke up and really get more precise, or of course, if the time comes, you got to get into self-defense mind frame. It definitely still has a nice amount of grip and whatnot. So really well done, really fantastic piece. I just love how light it is and how balanced it is. One of the nice things is you can see here, just that balance point is basically right where your forward finger is going to be holding, because so the weight on here is just about, look at that. So you can see really nice weighting on here. So we're just going to feel ultra natural. It's not going to have a really heavy, on either end, on the blade end or the handle end. It's going to be really just super comfortable and lightweight, but also the balance makes it feel even lighter because it's not distorting, the balance. It's just evenly distributing it. So just an idea of the weight, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the weight. Let's go ahead and grab my scale out from underneath here. Get it going. It's gonna have to wake up, and there we go. Let me make sure it's set to, it's set to ounces. All right. So you put this on the scale, 2.39. So these are advertised as being at about 2.35 ounces, 2.33. These are typically come in from the factory in the 1.9 something or 1.86 or something like that. So you're getting a little bit of weight, but this is still insanely light, guys. I mean, you look at that. So let's just say it's, just like advertised, although it's coming a little bit lighter. Let's say it's 2.35. Let's compare that to a 940-2. Okay, so it's lighter than a 940. This is a G10 940. So beautiful carry, really nice. And then you compare, let's say, to an aftermarket modified 940 with, this is just, everything's done on it. All the hardware, everything is now switched out to titanium hardware. I did keep the thumb stud and then of course the lock bar. But as far as the standoffs, also switched to titanium, screws all titanium, and then this beautiful milled titanium pocket clip from Rip's Tech Garage, and then we have these great rock scale designs with the mollusk. Essentially, you're gonna get all these beautiful contours similar to like the shell, essentially on like a seashell. So really beautiful. But let's go ahead and see how much weight this is, right? So still super lightweight, 3 ounces. I mean, considering what you have, right? This is a fairly long blade. Everything is quite thick, but here you're gonna get a similar aesthetic, right? It's almost like a budget version of it in a lot of ways. So, and then it's going to be, you know, essentially it's going to feel very thin because everything's very flat versus the contours you're going to find here. This definitely feels more like, hey, if I needed to, this could be more obviously self-defense oriented, although it's really meant to have that EDC vibe. The reverse Tonto to me just gives it more of a tactical feel. And then of course, because it is just generally slimmer and there's less belly on the blade, it definitely is more specialized for piercing. But when it comes to everyday cuts, you know, something like this is definitely going to be a lot better. Now, another knife that's very comparable to it also, which I have the little mod here, is the Benchmade Mini Rip. Now, of course, this one also has aluminum scales on it from AWT, but the problem is that the steel liners actually are all the way through, which is great for the standard Mini Rip, right? When it comes with those, you know, Grivery scales. But once you start adding a little bit of weight, it's I mean, this is heavier than the 940, right? So although aluminum is quite light, it's really the steel liners that are inside that make it heavy. So although I wouldn't consider any of these knives heavy knives by any means, I think, let me see. I actually have a, you know, a Delica here to give you guys an idea. I mean, 2.48. This Delica weighs more, and you're getting so much more knife. This is a real beater. I don't think I even post pictures of this one on Instagram because it's just been through a lot. But you can see you're getting a lot more knife for the money. I'm not saying necessarily cutting edge or handle length, but just, you know, the quality and just basically the technology. Very simple, of course. You got the back lock. But price wise, I mean, you're in 120 bucks, another 60, 180. That's basically the price you're gonna pay for this guy in G10. And this is gonna be lighter, stronger, and pretty much you're gonna have an aesthetic closer to this guy, which is way more expensive. And then of course, you know, the particular model I use on this one has the 20 CV blade steel, so that makes it a little bit more expensive already. But let's say we just put these on a regular 940-2. And then also the nice thing is you don't really have to switch anything out because you do have this beautiful blue hardware. And I think the black ties in still pretty nicely. Of course, black scales would definitely really tie it in because you do have the black lock bar here. But this thing is light, guys. I mean, let me see if I have... okay, so here's the EDC, which I absolutely love. Actually, very similar in size, a little bit smaller, but this is not by no means considered, you know, a heavy knife or anything. Oh, looks like it's shut off. This is by no means considered a heavy knife or, you know, or anything like that. And you put it on there, 3.9. So, boom, that's insane, right? You compare that, this gorgeous little guy here. I think they just won at Blade Show for like best folding knife, quiet carry, LMAX. Really nice. This thing is actually super light. I forget how much this weighs, so I'm actually, but I mean, let's look here. You're getting there's a lot more knife here than there is here, but let's go ahead and compare the weight. Okay, 2.1. So this is actually a little bit lighter, right? At 2.1 versus this is at 2.3, but I mean, geez, that's not much of a difference, guys. About 0.2 ounces. That's pretty insane for considering how much more knife there is there. Maybe another comparison that would be good is my little Yorkie, right? Look how small that guy is in comparison. Well, a very similar blade shape and whatnot, but quite small. This thing, let's see what this thing weighs. Look, 2.81. So again, these are not considered heavy knives by any means. That's just to give you guys a little bit of context of just how super featherweight this is. And none of those knives honestly are going to be as well balanced as this one is. And you know, of course, a frame lock, a flipper is definitely really nice, but the access lock with the thumb stud to me is just the most deployable option that's out there. So this thing's absolutely gorgeous. So as far as, you know, anybody who's been considering picking up a Bugout, of course, I can highly recommend this knife, especially if you're going to put aftermarket scales on it, whether it's something that's carbon fiber, titanium, aluminum. There's so many options out there. This is one that I just thought was absolutely gorgeous, and also for the price, that's just insane. 60 bucks, and you get all this quality. You get the milled out of the machine. Look at that little chamfer right there that you would never really even notice. Everything fit together perfectly. Look at that blade centering, absolutely perfect. No hot spots built in. Everything has just been so well finished, and I'm just blown away, especially but just the overall package of this knife. I mean, for the price, you're still invested, and you're under 200 bucks. You can have something that's this high quality, right? And you know what? I've spent a lot of money on knives. I mean, think about just this guy right here. You start factoring the scales, the knife itself, the screws, this gorgeous clip. I mean, fully milled. I mean, to me this is my little version of an Anthem, almost like or an answer to the Anthem. Maybe the point in between a standard 940 and a Benchmade Anthem is something like this. And this one's more of a piece of, you know, pocket candy. But this guy right here is just, I don't mind, you know, banging this one around, because it's just obviously one, price wise, but there's an abundance of options to keep these going and have multiple copies. I'm actually, you know, you guys know from my my mini grip video, I've done tons of these mods. I'm sure this is kind of my new addiction, because this knife is just so good. I think around come Christmas time, there might be a couple of people that find a modded Bugout in their stocking, because these things are just so darn nice. With all that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like. If you're not, please subscribe for more content just like this. Also, guys, let me know if there are any really cool scales out there that maybe aren't so mainstream. There's so many makers that are out there, especially on Instagram, that are doing really cool things. So let me know if there's some that you want me to check out, some that you recommend, and some that you've had good experiences with, or some that you'd like to just see maybe in a video. So with that said, again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.